Hello and good evening and welcome to the Emotional Awareness live discussion on a Tuesday night. This evening I should be having a guest with me. She seems to be running just a little bit late, but I thought I'll come on and do a little update and speak to you first. So it's been going really well. I should have got my list ready before I started. I haven't done an update on the speaker list for a while, so let's do that while we're getting started. We've had a few changes to the lineup recently with some, sorry. Oh dear. Right, here we go. We've had some changes to the lineup recently. We had a couple of weeks where I had some weeks off, and it's meant to be a 52-week challenge, and I will try and still keep that going to a full 52 weeks. It will just take it a little closer to Christmas. This should be with me this evening, Angela Karanja, talking about switched on kids. Courtney, switched on kids. Teen parenting. Switched on kids was Claire Ford last week, but she's now rescheduled. Next week, providing I can follow everybody up and everything's going okay and we don't get many more changes, we should have a Jonathan Trowan on talking about self-love. Then we're going to have a gentleman named John Hoyter, and he's going to be talking about something to do with health, and something about health that affects emotions. It's a little bit different. We just thought we'd mix things up a bit, and it's going to be about aerotoxicity. And then I should have Denise Eaton from Massage Therapy, the Therapy Shed, all about massage and other forms of holistic healing. So that's going to be a nice, exciting following from self-love, some real life things you can go and get into in your local area. And then I've got a young man named Matthew Sharkey Sims, so he's just known as Sharky to his friends. And he will be talking about suicide awareness with me. He's somebody who's been through a similar situation to my son with feeling suicidal at a young age. And he has now gone on to help other people and actually become a coach himself, which is amazing. Then booked in is Claire Ford on the 1st of June with the Switched On Kids. And on the 8th of June, I've got Chris Whitfield. And again, this is something a little different. Chris he started his own charity recently when his wife went through miscarriage, and he realised that there is a lot of support out there for women going through miscarriage, but very little support for the men who are going through that with their wives and partners. So he started a charity to do with men in miscarriage, which is amazing. So other than that, welcome to this evening. As I say, my guest speakers should be joining me anytime. Let me just put my speaker list out the way. But failing that, Mastering Life is all about mastering change, and without my guest speaker it's not much of a discussion, it's just going to be a talk. So until she appears, or if she appears, I'm hoping she will. I've sent her a message and not had a response yet. What I will do is I will just cover a little bit more update about the book as well. So welcome, and I've got all sorts of things stuck in the top now because I'm always referencing things. But Brain Unchained is the book that I launched back in January, on the 19th of January. And this is the one that's all based around teaching emotional awareness around the emotional cycle. And I do a lot of talks, guest talks every week. I do a guest talk every week, and I've done quite a few now. We're over 40 into the series. But I don't talk a great deal about what I'm actually doing on the back of the book. So it's nice for me to have a few minutes tonight to say that as well as the book, which is available on Amazon, I'm now also offering masterclasses, which are bookable on Eventbrite, and I'll put the link in the chat in a minute. I'm also doing masterclasses, also looking to connect with schools and charities who would like me to do a bespoke training session for their staff, or maybe even some support for teenagers. And the other one I'm doing now is one-to-one, which can be booked by contacting me through the website. Actually, if I just simply do that and put all the details of the website, I'm going to have to do it through Facebook because it never likes me doing it on StreamYard. So bear with me. So it's all coming together in terms of a business, in that we have the book, masterclass, Zoom conferences, one-to-one training and mentoring. So it's been a very busy time for me in the background while I've been doing the guest speaker every week as well. So I really want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's kept watching and supporting these, who's shared them, who's put comments in the chat, because it's all really, really relevant and it helps to add value to the guests. And it's very difficult to have a guest show without any viewers. So everybody who watches this is really, really valued. Also helps if we actually have a guest on the show. So as I say, tonight is just a nice opportunity for me to just update you on everything that's been going on with the business. I've also been doing a lot of networking, and I have literally been having meetings with people all around the world about the book. I have literally an hour ago just got off the phone with somebody in San Francisco. I've been speaking to people in Toronto, in Canada, people in New York. I've had a meeting with somebody in Quebec. I've also spoken recently with a child psychologist in Kenya, and somebody else who does a lot of work with new mums and sort of belly and beyond type things, and she was in India. I've been speaking to charities up in Scotland, and so I've literally been zooming around the world, all to do with the book. Hi Yvette, good evening, great to see you. So it's been really, really lovely to see not just that the book has come out, it's been published and it's helping people, but also it's just been that great opportunity for me to connect in areas I just didn't even dream, and had some of the most incredible conversations about this. And one of the things that a lot of people ask me, and this is a really relevant question, a lot of people ask me, what are my qualifications? And my qualifications is a difficult one to explain because it's easy to explain. In terms of emotional awareness, I'm not qualified. I have resilience training. I am trained in award in adult and education training, and I've probably still said that wrong because it was several years ago I did the training. Yeah, award in adult education training. Anyway, let me try that again. So with the book, when you have come up with something entirely new, let me start again. I have come up with something that's never been done before, and that is drawing the emotional cycle. Now, when you think about how we've put man on the moon, science is extremely advanced, so is technology. Look, we have the internet around the world. And yet, on the other hand, for centuries, people have been able to map out the entire galaxy of stars. They've been able to tell the time for thousands of years ahead by mapping out the movement of the planets and the sun and the earth, and studying the seasons and biology. Look what we can do with biology in the body and surgery these days. And yet when you look up anything on Google about the emotional cycle, there seems to be one thing, and that's this sine wave of a curve which has writing on it that is applied into psychology books that counsellors and therapists use to understand the process that they're taking their clients through. So the only time you seem to get training on the emotional cycle is if you go to see a therapist or a counsellor. But for everybody who doesn't want therapy or doesn't need therapy, how do they learn about the emotional cycle? And no matter where I looked, there was nothing. Nobody has ever said, now if we was to take all the different aspects of the emotional cycle, the same way we do all the stars in the universe, and map them out, here's what they look like. And there was nothing. So in desperation to find a way to help my son through depression and help him recover from being suicidal, and this is sort of controversial in a way, because on the one hand, my son had a very depressed and suicidal childhood, but on the other hand, as a parent, I never gave up. I never gave up. And when all the therapies had failed, and believe me, we'd tried it all. We'd tried the counselling, we'd tried occupational therapy, we'd done support groups, we'd made dietary changes, we'd looked at behavioural plans, we'd put trampolines and equipment in the garden for him to spin around and turn upside down and hang from, and punch balls and things to let his aggression out. We'd done the home education route as well to take him away from the stress of school and the bullying and give him the free space to actually sit and learn. So we'd been through a lot of challenges throughout his childhood, and at 19 he was still suicidal, he was still chronically depressed. And it was then that I started to look into this thing about the emotional cycle and say, I need a way to teach him. And for anybody who's coming on late, by the way, we are missing a guest speaker tonight, so tonight we are just going to talk, and hopefully she may turn up at some point, but for now I'm just talking a little bit more about my business. So in desperation to find this way to help him, I realised there are 3 ways to learn, and that is visual, auditory and kinesthetic, which is what you see, what you hear and what you do. And for my son, he was a very visual learner. He needed to see things. Now, because he couldn't see emotions, it made it difficult to learn and understand them. In the same way, he struggled to learn about money because it was a concept. He struggled to understand time and days of the week, even at 19 years old. So how was I supposed to teach him to understand his own emotions? I was stressed as a parent. So it was one thing is his emotions and the other were mine. Every day I was frightened for my son's life. I was frightened for how his day was going to be, and at the end of the day when I came out of work, what I was going to have to deal with to pick him up yet again and again and again. So realising I needed something visual was where I began, looking up the emotional cycle, and there was nothing. So I started to talk to him about everything I knew about emotions in terms of colour, and I started to apply what we already talk about in terms of colour. Like we talk about happiness being like sunshine. When you're like, oh, there's sun shining from you today, you're absolutely beaming, or you look on top of the world. And it was all this things to do with bright light, people who are happy, they're walking in the light. And I started to study everything we say and do against how we feel. And I started to realise that there was a set pattern to the colours that we use. And then I also started to realise within the year, it took me a year to develop this diagram in terms of really genuinely understanding what I'd come up with. But it was recognising that when we talk about things, there really was a dynamic about being positive and negative, fight and flight on the sides, which is why they're left and right, the red and blue, fight and flight. And there was so much that I learnt to put into that over the space of the first year. I also recognised that we change between emotions because emotions change. Then I had to look further down the line more at about what change meant. And there's a whole second section in the book all about change. And then finally I went on to study about root causes and put another section in the book all about root causes. So we had a understand your emotions. Then we had what changed to change your emotions, and then looking at the root cause. And when you get the root cause sorted and you really dig deep and you know what the root cause is, you can use that for the keys to turn your change into challenges and reverse the emotions and resolve negative emotions back to positive ones. And if you don't know how to resolve an issue, it also helps you understand where to get help. And there's a lot more to it than this. There really is. This book has come up with something where it's like you talk about the iceberg and the tip of the iceberg. Literally, what I've created in this diagram, I am aware that even I can only teach the tip of the iceberg on what I've created. It's more powerful than what I'm qualified or trained for. So when I'm coming right back round to the question about my qualifications, I tell people I'm not qualified, but I am an expert. And the reason is because I did not need to be qualified to be a parent that saved my own son. I did not need to be qualified. Excuse me, I've got a terrible itch on my nose. I did not need to be qualified to teach my own son how to understand his own emotions. And nobody has to be qualified to be a parent. An emotional awareness is literally, turn it around, being aware of your own emotions. Now, every single human being on earth has a right to be aware of their emotions, to understand them and learn how to moderate and control their own emotions the best of their ability. And let's face it, we all have ups and down days, and there are days when life seems to take over and throws us curveballs and puts barriers in our way, and emotions do take over. But the difference is whether you let that keep controlling your life, or whether you're able to go, whoa, hang on a minute, I need to turn this around. So when life changes, I need to turn that back into a challenge, and how to turn life back into something positive. how to recognize where your emotional mindset has shifted to. Have you gone into some state of sadness or grief or anxiety or fear? Have you gone into anger or aggression? Are you just being mildly bitchy to everybody? Recognizing your mindset is really important. Have you actually dropped into a point of depression? And then recognizing where you want to be. Do you want to be ecstatically happy, or do you just want to be calm and peaceful? Maybe you want to feel motivated and that you need to get on with life and actually find that way to get moving again and get past lethargy and demotivation, so you get life on track again. So it's important to know where you are and where you want to be able to make those positive changes for the better again. So this is what the whole book takes you through the process of, is understanding all of this. And it was through teaching this to my son bit by bit by bit that over the first year of sort of developing this strategy with him, I didn't even have the book. I didn't have anything to teach him from. I literally taught him and developed it at the same time as a process together, side by side. So it was, reeling around in my mind, and my mind was on overload like 90% of the day trying to figure all this out. And it's quite interesting actually, because I heard somebody talking last week about the reticular activating system, or RAS for short. And it's a part of the brain somewhere in this big lump of bone that we have stuck on the top of our shoulders is a little thing called the reticular activating system. And what it does is it regulates and filters information, but it also helps you to seek information. And a really good example that gets used a lot in terms of business and emotional well-being is if you was to buy a new car. Right. You drive down the road all the time and there's cars going left, right, centre, and there's red and black ones and blue ones and grey ones and silver ones, and they're just cars and they're colours, and there's lorries, and you don't take much notice of them. But if you've just been out and bought a nice bright coloured yellow Mini or something, I mean everybody spots a yellow Mini, so let's come for a different example. But if you've just been out and bought, say for example, a little red Fiesta or something, and then next time you go and you drive out somewhere on the road, you see a red Fiesta coming the other way, you suddenly notice it more than you would have done before. Before it would have been just, oh, there's traffic and it's all different colours. So all of a sudden, because you're aware of something, sorry, my speaker's now trying to get online, bear with me, yes. So because you're now aware of it, you notice it more. And this is what happened when I went from a point of, instead of saying, oh, I can't deal with this, or I'm, ignoring, sorry, bear with me a sec, my speaker is just messaging me, like, bless her, she's had an emergency apparently and she's on her way. Right, okay, on live already. Okay. So it's this process of, instead of saying, oh, my teenager's moody and aggressive and temperamental and I can't deal with that and I don't know what to do with him. The minute you say I don't know what to do with him or I can't deal with it, your reticular activating system, or your RAS, is not going to even bother looking for an answer, because you've already told it, I'm not going to look for an answer. On the other hand, my son was suicidally depressed and I was fearful for his life. And I said, okay, so we've done all the counselling, the therapy, the psychology, we've done the occupational therapy, we've done the martial arts, we've done everything, we've done the diet. What else can I do? Right? How am I, and this is why I kept saying to myself and asking questions, how can I teach him something that even I don't understand? But by asking the question, my reticular activating system then started to say, okay, let's watch what everybody else does. And I would study my family, my colleagues. I would watch the television. I would read books, the news, listen to the radio. And everything that I did or watched or was listening to, my RAS was then paying attention to those emotions and listening to what people said, the terms they used, the colours they used, the dynamics they used, until I started to recognise those patterns, like seeing red Fiestas go by every 10 minutes. So that was where I started to develop the emotional awareness strategy around the emotional cycle. And it took me a year to put the dynamics together and say, actually, I'm 100% confident that that is now exactly how our emotional cycle would look. And then I thought, right, now I've done it, what do I do with it? So I've helped my son. He was massively improved from where he was the year before. He'd come out of depression. He was struggling a little bit from time to time, but he'd stopped talking about committing suicide. He'd actually said, okay, I now know I need to face life head on. He'd actually started to face up to his challenges. He'd started to seek improvement in his own life. It wasn't just a case of hiding from everything and shutting the world out. The most amazing thing was that he'd gone from struggling to calling me and saying, Mum, I need help, and being on the phone for sometimes 2 or 3 hours, literally within weeks and a couple of months, down to saying, actually, I've talked myself out of a depression today in 10 minutes. And that was a massive step for him to even get there. So this is not like a 2 or 3 day program. It's going to take time. But it was just such a huge step for him to actually get to a point of saying he'd talked himself through a depression or a low, a dip in a space of minutes, to the point where he then literally just started mentoring himself through as well, but still knowing when to call me when he got stuck. And we've just continued that pattern. Is he calls me less and less and less. And every now and again, I just say to him, how are you doing? And it can be subtle things as well. Like he might say, yeah, I'm all right. So it might be, okay, so why just all right? Why not great? Why just all right? And sometimes just triggering that conversation and see what's still bothering him behind. So it's been a really interesting journey taking him through that. But again, I then got this strategy where I'm like, what do I do with it? It done such an amazing job on helping my son. And other teenagers who were around my son, we'd seen a difference in their behaviour just by being in proximity of friendship with him. So it was then a case of, what do I do with that? So I simply thought, you know what, I need to take this further. So, sorry, Angela is now backstage. I will bring her on in a second. Lovely to see you. So I then said, where do I take this from here? And I thought, well, there's not much point me taking this strategy forward to other people if it was breakable. So I then spent another year absolutely trying to bust my system apart. And again, where I'd watched and studied everything from a point of building it, I now went through the whole process again, trying to break it. But the more I tried to break my strategy, the more I developed it, and the stronger and stronger it got. Until eventually I ended up in November, as I say, writing Brain Unchained. So I'm going to stop there now because my guest is here tonight, Angela, and I'm going to bring her on screen and give her a chance to breathe and say hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi. Do you know what? It's been amazing because it's a long time since I've not had a guest speaker, and I love having a challenge, and it was such a challenge tonight for the first time in ages to just go on and talk rather than discuss. And it's always more challenging when you haven't got that bounce back from somebody in a conversation, and when you get stuck it's just like, oh, what do I say now? But no, we've been chatting away, and yeah, great to have you on here. I hope you're okay.
I am okay now. I had to rush. I had the last minute family something. I have a teenager and she went on one, and yeah, and it's something I needed to deal with so that she can feel heard and listened to.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so that's very important to me. But guys, I'm so sorry that
No, that's okay. It happens, and at the end of the day, it's actually very appropriate in a way because it's unfortunate but appropriate, because exactly what we've been talking about the last 25 minutes is that my own son was suicidal for 12 years, and you and I have not had a chance to catch up yet or even speak. So
yeah.
hi, and nice to meet you. So we're just saying about how I ended up writing my own book on the back of trying to save my own son from suicidal depression. And when these emergencies happen, they happen, and it is important to deal with them. So well done, and I'm really glad you did, and I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, she's all right. She's all right. She just was she was feeling overwhelmed by some schoolwork.
Oh
And
goodness, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to deal with it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's yes, overwhelm. Absolutely. Know that when you're building a business as well, that's another one.
that's right. That's right.
Overwhelm, burnout.
That's it.
And like you say, feeling listened to, it's all there. Wow, great start.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read your story, and obviously
Oh,
I
thank you.
listened to the TED talk as well, which was
Ah,
amazing. So I heard the whole thing, and I was like, oh my goodness,
oh,
this,
thank you.
this is such, it's such such an eye opener, and this is something I speak about and say that all of us, none of us is invincible, right? Any of this that happens, one thing that happens to one person can happen to me. So, yeah, so yeah, wow.
Yes. Oh wow, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I certainly know I went through my own depression last year. Different, not to the suicidal level, but certainly felt very stuck, very miserable. So I had, and it was amazing last year that actually on the back of everything my son's through, he was a rock to me last year, him and my daughter, and it was just like tables turned. And at the weekend, as I had a bit of a low day on Sunday, and he rang me up, and he's just like, "Do you know what, Mum? You need to do this." And he's like turns all the tables now, and he's got it all sussed.
Good. That's good. I suppose you're just getting back what you gave, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, just completely different lad now. Yeah, completely different, and it's amazing because, let's say, to people I'm just talking to already, at the age of about 19, when he was sort of almost bordering psychotic, where he was hallucinating, he didn't know the day of the week even, and he'd shut the world out. And yet now, at the age of 26, he's working in a factory, which being on the mild end of the autistic spectrum, even then, working in a factory can be quite daunting with all the noise and the strategies, and yet he, within 8 weeks of starting his new job, has been offered a pay rise,
Nice.
and they're training him for a promotion already to train other staff. And I'm
Wow.
like, 6 years ago, I could never even have dreamed of him even getting a job. It was, we were struggling to even connect him with life. So it
Wow.
just goes to show the power of the right support and the
Absolutely.
right knowledge.
The right, absolutely. It's the correct knowledge and the support and just the patience. Keep on, keep on believing, keep on sticking with it because
Yeah.
it doesn't, things don't necessarily just shift on the same day. But when you just keep at it, it comes to that what we call the tipping point, and
Yes.
it happens for both the good and the bad, right? If we let something keep on going, we get to that tipping point, and then it tips. Like for your son, it tipped to the, I'm sure the one day you are thinking, oh my God, when is this going to ever change? And then you got to a point where it just tipped, and he's surprising you now. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 He's amazing, and he's a dad as well.
Oh,
And good news is another little one on the way in September.
Papa!
So
How do
yeah.
they call you? They call you Nana or something.
Yeah, Nan, yeah, Nanny. So I've
Yeah.
got three grandchildren so far. But yeah,
Oh,
he's amazing, amazing. And his little daughter, bless her, I went from having the most miserable child you could imagine to having him having the most happy and resilient little girl you could imagine. And I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it did, and we're grateful.
that's
But
amazing.
this is his little girl. And
Oh, nice.
she knew she wasn't tall enough, so she got that little step stool, as if that's going to make all the difference in the world, and she was not going to give up.
But
And that's my son, sorry.
that's an effort, isn't it?
Yeah,
She
yeah,
knows
that,
that she can do something. Huh?
yeah. So she was desperately trying to reach those pull-up bars. So don't ever let anyone tell you your goals are out of reach.
That's right. That's right.
So he went over and he picked her up, and she got hold of the bars, and he just lifted her up and down. She's going like this, and then he put her down, and she ran off giggling her head off. It was so funny.
Nice. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So she inspired me, and I put that one in the book.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, please, Angela, introduce a little bit about yourselves and raising remarkable teenagers.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. This this is very interesting because it came on the back of for many years. I've been working with young people for
Okay.
over 20 years. I work with teenagers, empowering young people, and then I began to see a gap, especially with the parents and the teenagers. And the research was continuously showing us that, teenagers are lonely, they're reporting they're lonely. And then we found that the teenagers are being, especially those that are lonely, are targets of exploitation, sex exploitation. They're
Oh
targets
goodness, yeah.
yeah, the target of crime exploitation, drug exploitation. And I'm saying to you, it's across the board.
Yeah.
It's no longer, oh, because you're poor.
No.
It's not that anymore. We began to see trends. Kids from private school, they're being
Groomed. And it groomed is the word, yeah.
and even Kate, this is how bad it is. The grooming can be such a short time that you wonder, how did that happen? Before you blink, your kid is on it. They are on it, right? So it used to take weeks, months. Now, it could be even an hour from when the advert's been put out to when your kid is in it.
Yeah. That is shocking. Goodness
It's
me.
it's very shocking. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Are you hearing an echo? I can hear an echo. I don't know.
Have you got any headphones you can put in?
I think I should wear them. Yeah. Let me. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I have a microphone and everything, but
Yeah, sometimes the speakers feed back through the microphone and it just loops.
yeah, I'm just hearing it and I'm thinking, oh, that doesn't sound nice. Is that?
Right.
I think this is much better.
Yep. Okay. Lovely.
Yeah. So actually, it's very interesting because I then started searching for parenting programs and how I can deliver this. And interestingly, I'm saying this for the first time here.
Ooh.
And yeah, I know. I was hired by an Australian company to deliver these parenting programs, but it was very nice. It went well, but someone because the way I deliver, I'm usually very passionate about what I do because I believe in it 100%. And someone, unfortunately, in the same in the same presentation, must have felt a bit threatened.
Oh, right. Okay.
I know it's very strange. So they said they said not very nice things about me. So unfortunately, or let's say fortunately, actually, I believe it's fortunate because when the directors told me about it, I was like, oh, okay, is that what happened? And I didn't have a chance to say anything to defend myself. And
Oh, goodness.
do you know, I just looked at it and I took time to reflect because of the amount of not very nice things that were said and how untrue they were. And I just thought, this cannot be happening. This is something I really wanted to do. Of course, on top of
Yeah.
working with young people, because I was seeing there was a gap with educating parents. So anyway, do you know, after, I don't know how you guys feel about reflecting and meditating.
It's very important.
So I took 3 days away from a lot of things and I said, I need to give an answer to this, because what I believe, if it is not good, it is not from life. It's not from, I don't believe life, anything that's for advancement should not give you grief, and it shouldn't hurt, right?
No, you're right, yeah.
And I want to say, if it's not good, it's not from God, right? And I know, guys, I don't want you to think this is a religious thing. It's got nothing to do with that. But that's my belief. I always believe that anything that's taking me, even though I'm struggling, it doesn't feel painful, right? So I meditated for 3 days, and guess what came to mind?
Oh.
What came to mind is that I wrote a nice letter, and what was inspiring me, do you know Maya Angelou's Still I Rise?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. You need to Google that and read it.
Okay.
So I wrote to them that this is what you have said, but still I rise. This is what you have said, but still I rise. And this is what I said, and this is what you said, and still I rise. And then the last sentence I said was, we shall meet on stage on one of the conferences.
Ah.
And then that same week, this idea of developing this Raising Remarkable Teenagers as a parenting company came to me, and I went with it because I knew it was coming from the depths of my heart and from the depth of life.
Yeah.
And that's how this came about. Yeah.
That's amazing, yeah. Well
Yeah.
done you.
So it was something very positive that came out of this whole thing. Of course, I'm a psychologist. I'm an adolescent psychologist, so I have the knowledge. I have the expertise. I've worked with young people for a long time, and in working with young people, you tend to relate with the parents, right?
Yes, yeah.
And obviously in observing the parents and in research, that's where I was finding the gap, because what I was realizing was, as the young people were getting empowered, and then the parent doesn't know what's happening, they are now looking at this young person thinking that this person's being rebellious, this person's being rude, this person's being a rogue, this person's being, radical.
Yeah.
But now I'm able to show them, actually, this young person is not being rude, radical, rebellious. That's not what's happening. Instead, what's happening, this is what's happening in their brain, and also as they grow and understand and accept who they are more confident, and sometimes that can appear as being,
Yeah.
as being rude, right? But as the parents now begin to understand what's happening to their young people, so they're coming to the level and understanding what's happening, and you can see the compassion, that you can see the compassion, and the parents are saying, oh my God, I now realize that this kid is not out to get me. Yeah? They're not
You're
out to
so
get
spot
me.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. I still work in schools, and and obviously work with parents, and it's a beautiful symphony when you see and you see the two growing, the two understanding each other, the two challenging each other, the arguments that used to result in fighting or not talking for days, and there is arguments, because there should be arguments, because we are two different people, but the arguments are so peaceful, and there is a lot of understanding in the conflicting ideas, so the parents and the teenagers get to understand we can walk hand in hand without looking eye to eye, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that it's such a beautiful symphony when we get to that point. But it takes understanding on both sides, and I mean that's the reason for me. I started on the journey of actually educating the parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm with you there because I'm the same as I want to. My mission is to help parents mentor their own teenagers, and like you're saying, is about because to me there's I can't remember who did it, but there's a model. Is you get lots and lots of different coaching models like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs and
yes,
so on,
yes.
and there's all the different models, and there's one that's just simply about the three types of conversation, and you've got the parent, the child, and then I think the middle one was the nurturer. I think it was nurture or neutral. But yeah, when you've got, so when you say parent mode, that could also be like manager to employee. So it's like somebody in power, somebody sub power, and then there's this neutral in the middle. So it's these three levels of conversation. Like you said, as a parent, you're so used to being in that parent mode and the child in the child mode. But as they're coming into their teenagers, they're rising up to gain credibility and they want to be seen as a valid and credible adult.
Absolutely.
and then this person's still trying to talk to them like a child. And on the other hand, and it creates that clash. And there's this lack of understanding. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on.
I
Absolutely
like
love
the
it.
way you talk about the nurturing part because one of the things I say to parents is I have a teenager as well. And I have to remind myself because we all fall short, right? We need to drop that parenting and move into that partnering. Because as
Yes.
you said, as they come here, they
Yeah.
want to feel, they want to be able to express themselves. They want to be able to they want to be able to be seen as me. And they now are no longer in that mode of obedience. Like when they're little, 3, 4, 5, even 9, blindly obey, right?
Yeah.
But then they get to these teenage years and they're asking questions, they're challenging, right? And if you're not being a leader, and we are talking about a transformational leader, which is what parents are,
Yeah.
you're going to find it challenging because
Yeah.
you're not used to being challenged. But we
Yeah.
need to prepare ourselves just like a transformational leader, which is what all parents are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The day you got the kid, you became a leader by default, right? But now, if you want to influence your teenager, especially, we need to grow. We need to get those leadership skills. We can't do this. This is something I say, and parents laugh. I say,
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah, right, carry on.
okay, you don't play ground football at championship level. You can't cut that. You can't. It doesn't happen. You can't take a little. We've played. I mean, when they were just blindly obeying us, we were playing playground football.
Yeah.
Playground ball. It's easy. But you get to teenage year, it's championship level, and you have to build those championship skills. Otherwise, you're going to be battered to death.
Yes.
Right?
And without destroying anybody's emotions out there today who's watching this, fathers, I want fathers to pay attention here. Because fathers are well renowned. Like mums are saying, "Oh, come on, do this. Let's talk about it." And dads are like, "No, you'll do as I tell you." And this is exactly it. And then teenagers and fathers fall out, and teenagers run away from home, and then the mum's depressed because the mum's lost her child, and the dad's like, "Oh, he deserved what And not stereotypicalizing anybody, but it's a well-known story, and you hear so many people. And the other thing is when parents and teenagers get into those years where there is a big clash and a lot of arguments and they fall out, it actually leaves trauma that sticks with them for years as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like what you say about those traumatic events. And we know, you and I know that trauma the body, the body actually keeps trauma in you. You store trauma in your memory, and that's why later on in life, people have these almost like post-traumatic disorders, right?
Yeah.
Because something happened and it was never processed, right? We're not saying that any of us here is perfect parenting. There's nothing like that. But what we do is create those relationships where we are fluid. We need to be fluid. We need to be able to it's ebb and flow, ebb and flow. We cannot be, you know that when you're so static, something that's so static is easily broken, right? And when you break
Yes.
such things, they can be harder to repair. So, like you said, especially men, right? And again, it's not stereotypical, because I also know, I'll tell you something as well about especially my background. We're supposed to be tough, right? The black kids, you're supposed to be tough. You're supposed to be strong. And we, in doing that, we deny our young people. In fact, I call it almost dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing, and once you dehumanize someone, you rob them of the ability to be a person. Because when you tell someone not to cry, not to feel like this, not to feel like, you're stripping away the very essence of what makes us human, right? And we can't do that. We need to come back to softness, right? We need to speak to our young people heart to heart, heart to heart. And ourselves, we need to be vulnerable, right? Be vulnerable. Cry if you have to. Don't pretend. I'll tell you, like, I grew up in a family where apparently the parents they had never done anything wrong, right? They had never, they had never made any mistake. So what did that demonstrate to us? That doing something wrong is, you can't do anything wrong, which is a deception in itself, right? And on top of that, it's too high an aspiration to reach for someone not to be able to do something wrong, because we are human.
Yeah.
And when we have such,
yes.
I think you want to say something, and I want to hear it.
No, you're right. No, when you were saying about that's very true. When you were saying about setting aspirations so high, and this happens a lot in, I think, without stereotyping again, privileged families, when they specifically want children to go on to do medical and lawyer and all the high education, but they set the standard so high, and that teenager or young adult feels like they can't reach that. You think about it in your own terms, and you've got to think about it yourself. If somebody's telling you to do something that's beyond your ability, or you feel doesn't fit with your values, it is. If you feel like you're not going to achieve something, you feel hopeless. Like, what's the point? And that affects emotions as well, because to have a goal set and actually feel like you've achieved something in life, you need to be able to reach that goal. Nobody finds success in life by always falling short of their goals.
Absolutely.
And there are some people that will just say, well, I'm going to have a go at it, and they'll enjoy the journey. But when you've got somebody setting that goal way out ahead of what they can achieve, it's like telling somebody, okay, right, I'm going to put you on a marathon. You've got to go and run 26-mile marathon, but they've never even trained to run a mile or 30 or a half marathon. It's like, what's the point? It's daunting. It's overwhelming, like you say. And then you end up, and again, if they feel like they're going to disappoint the parents, because to say, oh, that's too much for me, or I don't want to do that, or it doesn't fit my values, or I wanted to go a different path, and they feel like that's going to shame, it's that sense of shame they have as well for saying that, the fear of being able to speak up. And when you're speaking to parents, is that really how you want your teenagers to feel? It's like they're ashamed to talk to you, they're afraid to talk to you, and would you rather set such big goals for them that they want to? I mean, I've spoke to somebody a couple of years ago, who wanted his son to go through university for a particular topic, but his son wanted to do something different. And I only had an hour's conversation with him, like a discovery call. I never actually went on to take this guy on as a client. But the information he took from it, I didn't hear any more from him. And I did wonder for a long time what happened. And then a couple of months back, his son appeared on LinkedIn running a voiceover business, which was very interesting. So he'd gone into the arts that he wanted, come away from what his dad wanted. But when you think about it, what his dad had wanted was for him to be successful in terms of he wanted him to be safe and secure with life. So there's one thing about what you want, but what he'd done was actually then taken what he wanted to do and turned that into a business that he's now doing anyway. And let's face it, in the pandemic and the lockdown, when there's not much else to do but then get online, a voiceover business I thought was amazing.
That's good.
I was really thrilled to see it, and I was like, yes, now I know something good came out of that conversation. So I was really pleased.
That is so amazing. It's so amazing what you say, and especially when you talk about these. As parents, many of us are very guilty of pushing our own goals onto our kids. It's very soul destroying, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, they might still go along with you, but imagine how you're destroying the kid's soul.
Yeah, and it's not intentional. Not intentional.
Most of the time, it's not intentional.
No.
But we need to be aware of life. Their life is pulling them this way. Who are we? Who are we to actually tear them away from what they want to be, you know, or from where, or even worse, we can end up actually pushing them away from us.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, I said earlier that I was dealing with daughters something, and she was telling me she was feeling overwhelmed and everything. Do you know what my solution was? I said to her, Dee, this is what I would like you to do, but it's up to you, whatever you choose to do. I want you to just go find some nice, calm music, go into your room, have a 30-minute sleep, or just quiet. Do nothing. Don't think about this work that you must finish before tomorrow. And then I asked her, what do I always say to you?
Yeah.
And this is what she said, because it's something she's heard so many times from me, that your mental health is more important than you bringing me an A grade.
Yeah. That is very well said. Yeah.
Do you know, and she's heard it so much that today she said to me, because I've said to her, I would rather you come to me with U's and E's, and I can still see you. We can laugh, we can go to places, we can travel together, you can do what you like to do, instead of me seeing you in a psychiatry unit with your A. I don't want that.
No.
I don't want that.
Happiness is more important.
Happiness is, and calmness of mind.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we do this, what we do is we rob our young people those, you know, the curious juice, the creativity juice. We rob them of those.
Yeah. And it's amazing because when my son was expecting his little girl, sort of in the weeks leading up to her birth, he sat there one day and he'd got his very philosophical head on. He was like, I've been thinking about what it means to be a dad. And he said, I've come to the conclusion, he was in very deep thinking mode, bless him, he just goes in full philosophical. He says, I've come to the conclusion that the best thing I can do for my daughter is teach her to understand her own emotions, and everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
You see that little picture of her, bless her. She's a delight. She's
absolutely. Emotional intelligence, whichever way you describe it, emotion. I mean, when I talk to parents and even teenagers about resilience, it's about understanding your emotions, processing them, reframing them, It's all about emotions. And like I said earlier, Dr. Cole, he says the body remembers.
Yes.
So when we have those traumatic experiences, and trauma, by the way, it doesn't have to be you kick the kid to death. It doesn't have, it could be, for example, what was happening with my daughter or other young people, the interpretation they make from, I called mom, I was having this trouble, but what did she say? Push harder.
Yeah. One word.
Yeah.
One word sometimes.
And that can be, I am not valued. I am not important. I don't matter. And those are the interpretations they make in their head. And it's every time they see you, unconsciously, they know you actually don't care for me. Those are the stories they're telling themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And
It's very sad. It's a very sad phenomenon, you know.
And it sometimes doesn't even have to be things you say to them. Because I had a conversation with somebody recently who said when they were younger and they realised they were gay, they wanted to tell their parents. But then they heard his father laughing at a joke on television about being gay. And then he held it in for years because he just didn't want to tell anybody. Because his own father had joked without knowing that he was getting close to coming out. So it can be something that simple that actually grows that trauma and that rift over years.
Absolutely.
Doesn't even have to be a conversation.
That's right. And that reminds me, sorry, just carry on.
Yeah, no, go on.
That reminds me when you said that it doesn't have to be something that you said. It could be even this, you know, in some families, and this is something I discourage, and I don't say we don't try and create big things for ourselves. What I say to parents, don't create a bubble of perfection. So perfect that if it's burst, you know, your kids collapse, right?
Yeah.
Don't be the one that talks about, oh, that family is a broken family. That you know, don't be that person that says, oh, that kid has two mothers. Oh, that kid, how can they do that? The parents are gay. Don't be that family that talks that about other people. Why? Because I say, even if you don't divorce, if your family doesn't divorce, one of you can die, because any person can die, or something can happen so that you're in bed for life. So don't be that family that creates this perfection bubble.
Yeah. And also that nurturing, because we were saying earlier about the parent, the child and nurturing, and sometimes even the nurturing can be overdone, and there needs to be a good balance, and like you said, it all needs to be fluid. Because even today, I saw an article today about teenagers who are leaving home and don't even know how to boil an egg. Because mothers have said, well, I want to give my kids everything you know, and the kids were brought up being told, oh, you got to fend for yourself. And they're like, no, I want to do everything for my kids. And then kids are leaving home not even knowing how to boil an egg. So they're not only just going out into this amazingly scary, big, wide world to learn about job skills and learning to deal with their own finances and stuff, but if they can't even just cook an egg, you know, basics, they need to know all that first. I mean, even with everything my son was going through, I taught him about his diet and shopping and things like that, even from when he was like 8-9 years old, because I knew that one day he'd have to leave home and fend for himself and feed himself, and we'd realised there were certain foods that aggravated his emotions. So it was just teaching him from an early age to eat well. So, okay, typical 18-year-old left home anyway, or we'd put him in a hostel, because this is before I developed the strategy in the book. I needed space because I got to a point where I couldn't cope for a while, and I don't want other parents to get there, which is why I've done what I've done with the book. And it then gave me the space to start thinking how to help him. But it was like, oh, leave home, eat what I want. So part of it was, again, just eating burgers and chips and junk food or skipping meals altogether because he'd spent his money on the wrong things. And his mental health went downhill really quickly again. But the minute we encouraged him to start cooking and eating, and I can still remember one of the first things he said was he finally decided to cook himself some like big flat cap mushroom with some rice and Stilton cheese melted in it or something.
Yeah.
And literally cooking like that, within a couple of days his cognitive thinking started rapidly improving. So it can be as simple as just changing diet to start with as well.
That's right.
And I did have a bit of a laugh when I took him a bottle of vitamin D pills and labelled them as happy pills and said, make sure you take them every day. Because we do have a sense of humour between us. I wouldn't do that to everybody, but between him and me, we had that sense of humour. So yeah, he took them, and again, it helped, just making sure you've got that vitamin D when you've been stuck inside out the sunlight. But I just want to quickly touch on what you've said a couple of times about hardwired when we have trauma. And I love that concept, and I think a really good way to explain that is going back to cave days when, you know, you would have walked through the jungle and you'd have been fine. And it's like, you know, most of the times we'll eat dinner yesterday and not even remember what we had for dinner or what happened last week, because it wasn't important enough for us to need to save our lives from it.
That's
and
right.
you could have walked through the jungle 100 times and your body doesn't remember it. You know, your brain, I was talking about the reticular activating system earlier, and filtering information. If it's not relevant to saving your life in the future or relevant to something you need to learn, your mind will filter it out. And that's what this RAS does. And when you walk through the jungle and you see a snake or a lion or something else that's dangerous, your mind will remember it, so that next time you go through, you remember to avoid that danger. And it's a built-in safety feature.
Yes.
But when we have trauma in today's society, and that means an even just simple argument between parents and children, that RAS is telling them, that was dangerous, I did this or I said that and I had that reaction, and emotionally I felt endangered. And so they remember it, and that's where this trauma, like you said, becomes hardwired neurologically. And I love that analogy of it, in that yes, it does become hardwired, and it then takes sometimes years to let go or reimagine it into a different way of processing it mentally, to let it go or find a different meaning from it. So sorry, when I get going, sorry.
No, that's fine. That's really fine, because I like what you're saying, because let's remember, every encounter, whether it's spoken or it's your demeanor, anything you do around your young person, you're creating neuropaths. We call them, they are little paths, right?
Yeah, like little synapses and
synapses. They're called
neural
synaptic
pathways.
paths. Yes, they're neural pathways. And what happens is, the stronger, the ones that are stronger are the ones that actually rule the person. That's why and it's from those, then we start having habits. So you see, the young person is behaving in a way that maybe, like, especially at that age, they either externalize and they become aggressive and wild and everything, or they internalize it. And those are the young people we see have anxiety, depression, like loathing and all that. And neither side is good. Neither side is the good one. So we need to be very, and I don't mean we walk on eggshells, that, you're walking scared, you don't know that's not what, but it's being aware. What I'm doing, I'm making an impact. And also, listening to them, getting it from them. What did this mean to you? Because you could have done something that you thought was okay. For example, the conversation that man, when that man laughed because they watched something to do with gay, right? We're not saying that people can't have their own opinion. You can, but in the presence of other people, it's very important to clarify with other people, how did that make you feel? What did and then, because we all have our own sort of prejudices, I could say something. I know I've had to apologize to my daughter many times because I've said something, and she goes, but Mom, that is not right. In fact, she has said, but Mom, that is racist. And I'm thinking, yeah. And when you think about it, yes, when you think about it, it actually is, because you said something, it's not that you intended to. I would say something like, for example, my partner, he's white as with blue eyes, and he's like that. So
like me.
Yeah, so daughter, both of us have to be. It's not like we don't want to walk on eggshells. We don't want to be afraid of each other.
No.
But then we need to be available to be corrected. Because the other day I said to Matt, my partner, I said to him that, "Hun, you just came out in this sunshine, and you're a lobster." That's what. And that's when my daughter said to her, "But Mom, that's very insensitive. That's racist." And I was like, okay. First of all, I said I'm sorry, and then I listened to her expression and her explanation of it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't mean to be that way, but
yeah,
I was insensitive.
I think that was more the word, because I think racism is very much when you say something purposely to upset somebody because of their skin colour or race or something else.
Yeah.
And racism can happen between people of the same colour because they're from different countries. I mean, it even happens in the UK, but in different areas of the UK.
Absolutely.
But yeah, there is insensitivities as well. Yeah, so
So we talked about it. Like, we went to where you've gone. Daughter, teenagers will just say, "Oh, that is this, that is," they like to generalize it. So we talked about it, and she said, actually, at the end of it, we discovered actually it was an insensitive comment. It was not racist, right?
Yeah.
That's what we came to. But
perfect.
She was comfortable enough to challenge me, right?
That's good.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if she didn't challenge me, and then in her head, she's thinking, my mom is racist, So without having this conversation, and that's why it's very important to unpick these things to help them process, and even to help ourselves process, because that is the story she told herself. Had she not told me, she would have maintained that, and every time she thought about people who are like that, she'd have thought, my mom's one of those, but I'm keeping quiet,
Yeah, but it's really, really good she can ask the questions as well, because if you don't ask questions, you don't grow. And that's a really important part of growing is being able to ask questions. And again, before you came on live earlier, I was saying again about the RAS system, in the head, about filtering out information. And the minute you say to somebody, even say to yourself, I can't deal with that, or I can't cope with that, or I couldn't be bothered with it, your reticular activating system is not going to be seeking answers.
Absolutely.
But when instead you say, oh my goodness, well, everything hasn't worked, what else can I do, or how can I do that, then your brain will start seeking answers. So it's also how you internalize your dialogue. So the fact that she can ask questions means she will learn, and you're growing, and that's so important. And
but then there is I believe you can feel maybe where we are going. Someone has to feel safe enough to express themselves. So, and this is something I speak to parents about, and I'm sure you do the same.
Yes.
Give them a safe space to speak.
Yes.
A safe space to speak, which is something they don't often get, not even in school, because sometimes when our young people challenge, they are labeled as difficult. So we know that. So as parents, can we be the ones that actually give them? In fact, there is give them that space to speak. In fact, there is an experiment I do when I'm doing presentation about giving young people a safe space to speak. And what I do is blow a balloon. So you blow the balloon, and 2 balloons. One of them we just keep blowing. The next one, I blow into it, but then let a little bit loose.
Okay.
And then I blow again, and then I blow on the second one, but then let a little bit go. And then if you keep doing that, which one of the balloons do you think is going to burst first?
Yeah, obviously the one that you don't let the air out of. Yeah,
Absolutely.
don't let the tension out of. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that demonstrates that all kids, all our teenagers are going through the same things internally and even externally, right? Mm-hmm. So they've got challenges. No one is without challenge. But the difference is the one that has that safe space to speak is unlikely to break and burst not because they haven't got problems and not because they haven't been affected, but because they have been allowed that release. But this other one is going to burst and break because they never had that chance.
Yeah, so the air going is the challenges in their life going in.
The challenges in our lives, the challenges in their lives. And we know, you and I know, and all of you guys listening, you know that the teenager's brain is undergoing so much, so much movement, especially the frontal lobe. It's growing at such. It's trying to catch up, it's trying to catch up with the limbic. The limbic, the reptilia, the one that you talked about earlier, is the one that's ahead of them. That's why they're so emotional. That's why they're so irrational. That's why they seem like they're not thinking about what they're doing, right? Because the frontal lobe, which is the executive function, which tells you, oh, wait a minute, or hang on, that's not fully developed, right? So as our young people are going through all that sort of manic stuff in their brain, right? If we don't give them that space, that safe space, that's how they can end up breaking.
Yeah,
and absolutely. None of us want that.
No. No, I really love the sound of that as an experiment. It's really good, or as demonstration. It's a really good analogy, and like you said, that just being able to, like you say, sticking stress into both balloons at the same rate, but giving them an opportunity to talk and release stress from one is allowing that resilience to stay there in the balloon itself, and the other one is just adding tension, stressing, and then eventually it's going to go pop, like teenagers go pop.
That's true.
It's really good. I like that one. But I'm the same. Because I've got a series of 4 masterclasses I'm running through at the moment, and one of those is creating a safe space for talking. And I do, and it's separate. It's actually not even what I've put in the book. It's separate. I've actually got 10 strategies and tips and tricks for creating that safe space for talking. All different strategies I've used, with my own son, and I still do. Even with, my grandchildren, even sometimes when I talk to them. And it's about learning those strategies for creating that safe space. And I do 100% value that. You are so spot on.
I absolutely. And those are not just, we appreciate the experience, we appreciate what has happened, but I can tell you what Kay is talking about. These are proven psychological, these are psychological theories. We can start mentioning them, but this is not the intention of this time to mention big names. But I can say what you're saying. These are psychological solutions, and they work because they are intended to give your brain, your brain, and especially your teenager's brain, that release. That, and being able to reframe, and that's what we talked about, fluidity. That's why it's very important for you to be fluid and not just. And when you when your teenager comes with something, don't just jump in with your, and I'm not telling you, I'm talking to myself as well.
Yeah,
Because
I get you. I already know what you're going to say before you say it. It's right. I'm there with you.
Yeah. So don't just go in there with your preconceived ideas. Give them that. Hold yourself and like, okay. What I say is, when they come to you with something, before you say anything, lean in and ask. I want to hear more. I want to hear more. And this is why the moment you throw in your preconceived idea, it completely blocks that conversation, because you've already made a decision and they assume, oh, there's no point me carrying on talking. But when you lean in, they feel listened to, they feel important, they feel valued. And what happens, even for us as parents, as workers, when you feel valued, you want to give more, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to give more, you want to express more. The fear is gone.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you give them that safe space, they do open up.
Absolutely.
But I think that should with the parents, this should come as a warning. When you create a safe space for a child to open up, it comes with a warning. Be prepared for whatever they open up with. And you have to pre-think to yourself, how are you going to hold back that reaction? If your teenager tells you that they perhaps even pre-16 engaged in sexual activity, if they're taking drugs, if they've committed a crime, where they've got some other really deep self-harming thoughts or suicidal, whatever they tell you, I always think the first and most important thing to tell them is thank you for trusting me.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
And then don't respond with anything else. Go away, deal with your own emotions in a separate room, and come back and have the rest of the conversation later.
Absolutely.
Never react, like we were saying earlier about reacting and biases and judgments. But one of the most important things first for me to say to them, thank you for trusting me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That thank you. It can open doors inside of your child's heart.
Yes.
Thank you. Gratitude, because it's most likely that before they said that to you, they were so filled with fear. But when they open up and they are accepted, because when you say thank you, you're saying, I accept you.
But the minute even before you say that, go, what?
That's right.
You've closed them off.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
When I give you a gift, what would you say?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully. Depends on what you've been given, but But no, you're absolutely right,
You say thank you, right? And then, like Kay said, because sometimes you'll hear things, you're like, your eyes want to pop.
You can be going crazy in here, your heart can be beating, you can be like trying not to breathe heavy, but you have to hold it.
You have to hold it.
Tough as it is, you have to hold it. Say thank you for trusting me.
And
give me time to think. You have to ask them so you're giving them space to talk, but then you have to go and create your own safe space to deal with it.
Absolutely.
And think before you react. Yeah.
And it could be something as simple as, let me go to the toilet actually, right? But don't show them that you're in shock.
No.
Because when you show them you're in shock, then again that cuts it cuts the very connection that you were trying to have. And without the connection, the game that's the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. You want them to be able to trust you, because if they can't trust us, they're either going to hold it in or they're going to tell the wrong person.
Yes.
And I can tell you from working with these young people for so long, the friends they think are friends out there, They're not always. It could be someone that's, tell me so that I can use it against you tomorrow, or I can hold it. I can hold it. This is what I know about you.
Manipulate them, yes, and
Manipulating
blackmail
them,
them, and
blackmailing them, or even deciding, or they're saying to you, your parents don't care, I care. And what happens? That that bond is broken.
Yeah, they did push the rift. Yeah,
absolutely. And when there's a rift, even in the wild, we know that the animal that is on its own, it's the one that's targeted by the predators, because it's easy. It's easy to catch.
Yeah.
And we don't want that with our young people.
No, they've got to feel safe enough to come home to tell you everything, and that to me was the most powerful thing, when my son stopped shutting me out and actually started calling me. And then that was the bit where it sort of sometimes. And the other thing is about allowing time, because sometimes it's not a case of sit down, right, come on, tell me what's going on.
No.
Sometimes you might have to sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a chat about what the weather's like. You might have to talk about what they've watched on telly, what the friends have said, and it might take sometimes an hour or so before they'll open up.
Or even days.
And even days, but then be prepared, if necessary, to sometimes have to sit there even 2 or 3 hours. And no matter what it takes, if they're not safe enough to walk away from, don't leave them. It's like trying to rescue somebody from drowning when they're in that. I mean, we're talking extreme state here.
Yeah.
But it's like rescuing somebody from drowning. You don't say, well, I've almost got you to the shore now, I'd let go and come back tomorrow. You have to make sure they're on dry ground before you walk away.
Absolutely.
and it's the same emotionally.
That's right. And that's not the time to say to them, what were you doing? How silly were you to go into the pond? Well, that's not that time.
No,
that's
time your own reaction.
Yeah, that's the time to say, I'm here. Hold on to me.
Yeah.
Hold on to me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they've done or not done. That's just not the time.
Yeah. And we'll also like to say as well, for anybody out there who's a parent who's watched this and actually been brave enough to listen this far, and we've run well over time tonight. I'm so grateful to anyone who's still watching. We've run well over time because I normally stop at 8 o'clock, but because we started late, I wanted to say thank you so much, and I'm loving this. That's why I've not panicked about the time. But also to any parent that's been brave enough to watch this all the way through to the end, if you have made these mistakes up to this point, or perhaps you've not been aware of another way to handle things with your teenager or to approach them, do not beat yourself up about how things have been up to today. What matters more is how things are from today onwards. Absolutely. That is the difference between now and the future relationship with your teenagers, your children, your young adults, your grandchildren. It's most important thing to focus on is today onwards. Absolutely. The past is gone. You cannot change the past, but you can change what you do in the future.
Absolutely.
And that is how to get that relationship back and regrow it and connect and get the trust back from your children. And they will more likely forgive you for everything up to that day and all those traumas by doing that and saying, okay, come on, we need a different way, and work through it together.
That's right. That's right. And it's and like you said, Kay, this is not a guilt tripping session. This is not a shame session. No. This is an awareness session. Yes. And I can say to you, as I speak about this, the reason I speak, I'm also speaking to myself, because I have to remind myself, remember, we are also parenting our young people, aren't we? And we know, you said your son's about 25, 26. We know, especially teenagers, we know that their brain, up to the age of 25, that's adolescent years. So some of you may have 20-year-old or 22, whatever, and those are still the young people we are addressing, we are talking about, because it's about relationship. So don't feel like you've been victimized, or we are in this together.
Yeah.
We're in this together. And like Kay said, if you've come this far, you should be so proud of yourself, because we are having this conversation as parents, and we just want to grow, really, I believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think you and I need to have another chat another day.
I think so.
Off camera. Off camera.
Right.
We can talk about a lot more, but this has been absolutely incredible. And I'm so grateful for you coming in. And yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much this evening. And
I'm so grateful, Kate.
so just to clarify, you are based in the UK, from what I remember.
I am in Oxfordshire. Yeah, right. I am in
Oxfordshire.
Oxfordshire. Yeah, right.
Yeah. So you're in Oxfordshire. What I'll do is I'll put the link down there, remarkableteenagers.com. I'll put that in. I've got to go back to the beginning of the speech and remember what I said, because I've got to put those videos in as well, those links in as well. But I will put all those in hindsight, and then I will be heading to bed because I've got a meeting at 6:15 in the morning.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah. So, and just before you go, I just want to say for all you lovely people that are watching, I had decided I was going to give you a free masterclass actually, and like you said, it's on raisingremarkableteenagers.com, and then you just go /class. So it's raisingremarkableteenagers /class, and just take it away for yourself and enjoy.
Right, I'll type it in as we speak. raisingremarkableteenagers.com /class.
Just class. Because it's your free masterclass. Yeah.
It is in the links. There we go. Right. Well, thank you so much indeed, Angela. It's been an absolute delight talking to you, and all the best with helping your teenage daughter with her homework and having a beautiful, peaceful life from there on.
Yeah, and you too. And
Thank you
I'm
so much.
Proud of you and what you've achieved and how you are inspiring parents. It's people like you that give so many of us hope that it can be done. It can be done. It can be done.
It can. And for yourself, and again with your classes, keep going. Try somebody else, because as horrible as it might begin, as you said at the end, one person's judgment is their judgment. It's not a reflection of what you're doing, it's a reflection of their judgment. Keep doing what you're doing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Angela, and thank you to everybody else. See you all again at 7 o'clock next Tuesday. Bye bye.
Bye bye now.